So this week I wanted to take a deeper dive into perception. And I was reflecting on why I wanted to spend more time on perception. The first thing that came to mind was a great deal of compassion for all of us. Perception left unseen has so much power over our lives. And we can't stop perception from arising. It's a natural function of the mind. It can be useful, and yet so much of it is skewed with misperception or not reflecting reality accurately. The wiring is so deep and the programming strong and information so fast. It's a bit like a speed train of information flowing through our brains, interpreting everything that comes in through our sense doors, and mostly it's skewed from the start. Thus, the compassion. And my training, the teachings I've heard, also tell me that this is all workable. The key, again, being awareness of these perceptions, seeing and knowing perception just for what it is, and gaining an understanding of how perceptions don't have to be believed simply because they arise. A great lesson for me through my own meditation practice is just to see what rubbish is there at times. And it would be a really sorry world if it were all true. So I mentioned last week that perception is when raw data comes in through the sense doors, like a visual object, and we see color and form, and then perception starts to cobble this information together and recognizes it, names it, labels it, categorizes it, and out of this we have reactions that affect how we relate to our experiences. So I wanted to explore this week our link to the world through our sense doors and how this is coloring our lens in moment-to-moment experience, and how this starts to create an illusion of how the world is, and an illusion of self. If we look at something like sound, which is quite simple in that when a sound hits the eardrum, there is vibrations. Then perception jumps into action and labels this. And you just take, like, maybe the sound of the birds right now. Actually, maybe you have heard some background noise and you thought it was a microphone misfunctioning. And if you're a tech whiz, you might have had a trigger go off of being dissatisfied by the quality, or an impulse to jump in and to do something to fix it. Whereas for someone else, you might not have much knowledge, but you think that there's something wrong with your computer and it's making a funny noise. Or if you know that it's a bellbird or another bird, you might have been just rejoicing in the sound. And I always marvel at the different ways we all perceive things. I take my friend's dog for a walk, Kylo, and when she has the opportunity, she just loves to roll in really smelly things. To her, it's beautiful. She's so delighted. To me, it's like, whoa. Or you look at the world of politics, and you can almost be like people are living on different planets and how different the perception of how things are is. And, we get really attached to our way being right. And when we start to look into perception, we can see its value and function, but we also become aware of the way that it's deceptive. So we have this natural expedited filing system in our minds that organizes through association, through similar things being similar. Like, for instance, if you look down and you see an object there, look down, it's floor, And, because we've seen similar things as a floor in the past, we define it from its color, its shape, form, but, we see it and recognize it, label it as a floor. Or we look down at our lower part of our body and we see a leg, maybe then becomes a fat leg, a skinny leg. We somehow pigeonhole our experience into something recognizable to us. And some of how our perceptions are skewed really comes through the conditioning, which goes back to, being in our mother's womb, our birth, the family we grew up in, the neighbors, the friends, the norm of the culture at that time. I mean, I find it quite interesting to see now how there was behavior that when I was a child, if it's done today, such as spanking your child, it's not okay anymore. And, it was perceived in a whole other way then. So there's so many different layers of this information coming in, conditioned by so many factors. And there's just a number of ways that these perceptions cause problems for us. Very often we mistake our perceptions to be permanent when they're really quite fleeting. We hold images of people as to how we perceive them in one moment and make them into concrete, and that's who they are. Or we do this with ourselves, that we take, our worst moments when we're enraged or whatever it may be, and that's who we are. And that this is only just fleeting moments of conditioned experience. So we also find comfort in familiarity. And so this keeps us grappling with our experience as it is so fleeting and changing, and trying to organize it in a way that we feel more comfortable or stable. And it gives, what will give us an impression of stability is permanence. Impermanence gets concealed by continuity, or not seeing things clearly. There's the failure to give wise attention to our experiences, and this creates the illusion of permanence. But when we sharpen perception, we will come to see that all things are impermanent. And this helps, as we know, to decondition the tendency to grasp and to just see the futility of this. Another distortion of perception is the taking of what is not self and projecting self onto it. I am whatever is being perceived. I am thinking, I am hearing, I am remembering, and there is this belief that I am the one who remembers. I am the one who distinguishes, as if there is some unchanging entity that is behind the whole show. We can also see it in a way that we define things in our experience. We call what happens inside my body as self, what happens outside this body as other. And yet these boundaries too are arbitrary. I have the hair on my head, which I can relate to as my hair, and yet when it falls out into someone else's soup, is it still my hair, or is it no longer me? We hold on to the perception that we exist as a solid, separate, continuous, and defined being. And whenever we move into an object relationship with things, with experiences, the world, we start to own the perceptions. As such, we move into I am. We move into separation. And unless we pay attention, this perception of I am is not seen and has an effect in that we do not see the selfless nature of perception and believe its construction. When memories come to mind, we think, I have remembered, as if I could organize and retain this information and just in that precise moment call it to mind. Yet, if we look more closely, we see that these perceptions and memories are constantly arising and passing away again, and that we don't have control over this. Memories are ungovernable and not fit to be called self. It's simply a natural process dependent on conditions, incessantly arising and passing. Have you ever been sitting quietly, peacefully, and then you remember something that happens that was unpleasant, and it's like you've been kicked in the guts? Your peace is shattered. And there was no asking that memory to come. It simply came. There was no control. Or maybe you're sitting here feeling contented, and then a memory of some kind of loss comes, and there you're left with longing, wanting, or that you're entangled in grief from this memory arising. It has a huge impact. Distortion of perceptions become our thoughts and views. And these distorted views and perceptions are not saying anything about the way things really are. They're creating an illusion that is continually changing in its form or flavor. And through meditation, we start to notice these distortions of perception and the sense of illusion. What we perceive to be true in one moment changes or becomes oppressive. It's unmanageable, and it's really not subject to our will. It is not who we truly are. Rather, it is conditioned phenomena. And we start to see the illusion simply as illusion. And this starts to just break down the solidity of this world that we have been perceiving as being so solid and real. So look forward to doing some meditation with you as we delve a little more deeply into this.